Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grilling Truth.
All right, guys, we are back with the Sheridan Report on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Sheridan Report is brought to you by MyBookie.Ag. To get up to a $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit, go to MyBookie.Ag.com or MyBookie.Ag and put in promo code TGT50, or you can go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the banner at the top of the page to get that code. All right, let's start it off. Bobby Sheridan, you ready to give us some games? I know you got one that starts here within the next hour you want to start us off with.
Yeah, I do, Mike. How are you doing? And I'm glad to be back on with the sports betting show, and I'm excited for it. And today we've got two top plays, and one is in the college and in the conference tournament, the Pac-12. And I alluded to that last week. The Pac-12 was going to be a moneymaker for us in this tournament, and we're going to put that to the test today because we've got two selections from that tournament today, and one's a top play, and it's going to go at noon. So that's why we're kicking off with it, noon my time. I always talk Pacific, and I have to remember that we have a lot of East Coast listeners. So 3 o'clock on the East Coast, which is 1 hour from now, we've got USC playing Arizona in the Pac-12 conference, and this is a game that kind of features two teams that had disappointing seasons. You know, Arizona is a perennial top 20 team nationally and certainly top 1 or 2 team in the Pac-12. And they fell down to the 9 spot in after the standings shook out. And USC is typically, you know, anywhere from where they ended, you know, maybe 8 where they ended, as well as good as maybe up to 4 or 5 in some years in the Pac-12 I'm talking. And, you know, sometimes in the conversation for the top 25 nationally, but they kind of fell back. But the reason why their expectations were big this year is they have 2 big men, one named Benny Boatwright and one like a European named Rezmanovic or something like that, who really had good seasons, and they had great expectations for those 2 guys this year. And they added a guy named Porter to the lineup. He's a freshman, and they added him to their mix this year. And you know, that's a pretty stout front line, and that's the reason why we're actually picking them today. I really loved him today, and I'm making sure the name I gave you correctly. Yeah, Kevin Porter Jr. And the reason I like USC today, Mike, is because they beat Arizona back at the Galen Center, which is USC's home court, in late January. Beat them really badly. I want to say 82-59 or something along those lines. And both teams from that point on, you know, they both gave some indications of kind of gaining some footing in the conference. You know, I kept looking for certain teams to put their foot forward, and finally found something late in the conference, which gives me some confidence for this tournament. But both teams, you know, it didn't happen for them. It didn't happen. And here they are facing each other. And so they have the one game, 82-59 USC win. And for Arizona's chances, they feel like, okay, we didn't have our starting center in that game, which is a guy named Jeter. And so, you know, we won't get out rebounded by 25 like we did, and we won't get outscored in the paint. We won't, you know, all this. Well, USC, they're adding Porter back to the mix. Porter has missed 12 games. He's a star freshman, star recruit for them. He missed 12 games this year with conduct issues. And he's back in the fold. And bottom line is here, Mike, is that USC has a dominant front line in this game with or without Jeter rejoining the lineup for Arizona. They have the best player on the court, best leader, best player, senior Boatwright. This guy's getting 5 threes a game here, and he's gonna want to go out with a good showing here in this tournament, I believe. USC's a team that's scary. They're a team that can come from out of the pack and win this, and we already know that this conference can be won by a team coming from the pack. You know, you've got Washington as the top team, but Washington is barely scratching the surface in the top 25. It's that kind of conference.
Well, I think it's possible if Washington loses before the conference final, they may not even get into the NCAA tournament.
Exactly. So that tells you right there, this thing is wide open. And so I think I've got my finger on the pulse of a good team that can make a run, a good team, you know, for that category of a long shot that can make a run through this thing. and that's USC. So I like them today. Arizona's got all kinds of questions with Miller, whether he's going to be back or not, and his preseason thing he was involved in, and you've just got an Arizona team. Their best player is a guy named Brandon Williams, and he came back and was supposed to solidify that whole thing. It just hasn't happened. I mean, since that loss January 24th to the Trojans, they only won 3 games. So, this is just a team that hasn't worked for them. I believe USC could find something here late. And so we've got the Trojans. They're getting 2 points today, or 1.5, something like that in that range, at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern start in Las Vegas. I do believe that they're going to go there and get this.
Actually,
first game.
MyBookie.Ag, you can get them +2 right now.
Very good. Well, then you're getting a good line. I would take those 2 points, get the day started off right. We've got, much like Notre Dame yesterday, I believe that we're going to get the day started off right. And so I made that a top play. And the reason I'm confident also, and if you've listened to our shows before, which some of our listeners now maybe not have, but the Surviving Advanced listeners definitely did, is Pac-12 was a little bit of a bugaboo for me this year during the season, but we found something late, and we stick to it. And sometimes it takes a while to really learn these teams and get a read on them, and what has been an unpredictable conference may still be in terms of this tournament having a long shot, but it's becoming more predictable to me as my plays. I've hit 4 of the last 5 to finish the year.
What else we got college basketball-wise today?
Well, also on college basketball, we've got one other game today, and I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's Northwestern. They're getting 2 points in their Big 12 conference tournament game with Illinois. Big 10. Yeah, Big 10. I got Northwestern +2 over Illinois. And we've got tonight, also at 9 Eastern, as the Northwestern game is, we've got UCLA +1 over Stanford. So we've got that's our 3 college basketball plays, with USC being the premier play at 3 Eastern.
All right, Bobby, what about the NBA tonight?
Well, the NBA, we've got another solid play here, and we're going to go back to the well with a team you're going to be familiar with when I say them. Let's look at the standings real quick, and we'll look at the East Conference standings because that's what we're going to focus on tonight. And we've got the 8th spot being held down by Miami, and they're a game up and a game and a half up, respectively, over Orlando and Charlotte. So there still is, a game and a half separating 3 teams for only 1 spot. Okay, just above that now, you've got Detroit and Brooklyn battling for the 7 and 6 spots, only a half game from each other. And I said it the other day, and I'm going to stay with it. Okay, this Pistons team is dangerous. I believe they're the only team among those bottom 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that are going to spring an upset. I do believe Detroit has a chance to spring an upset, especially if they get the 6th spot and can play Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is volatile in the playoffs. So Detroit had won 5 in a row before traveling to Brooklyn and got hammered. And when you look at that game and you look at kind of what they were saying about the game, it was inexplicable. They had won 5 in a row and averaged 129 points. And we're playing, the metrics-wise and the stats that we talk about. And I mentioned Andre Drummond had the best plus-minus of any player in the NBA since February 1st. And what happened in that game, I have no idea. That they don't know what happened. Dwayne Casey talked about it. He talked about just getting, he says, if we're serious about making the playoffs, we have to come out and not believe all the hype and all the stuff. What he means by that is they had a 5-game winning streak. They were playing so well. He says, we didn't come out and play. I didn't coach physical enough. We didn't play physical enough. We took a step back. So, I believe we can draw a line through that game. I've used that analogy before in a horse racing analogy. When a horse breaks out of the gate and bumps and he's just lost it at the start, there's no chance. You just draw a line through it. It wasn't a real indication of that horse's ability. And this certainly is not of Detroit's because they have too long of a stretch of playing great basketball. And so here we go. They're going to go into Miami tonight off of a bad loss, which means, what does that mean? That means full concentration. That means A, effort. That means A, focus. And when you get that from a team that you feel is the better team, you got something working for you. So that's what we got tonight, Mike. we got that kind of a situation. Betting a team off a loss is actually a really good thing. So they've won the season series so far, 2-1 over Miami. They'll be going for the clincher tonight. And the Heat, we mentioned this on the Survive in Advance show a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago. They are the only team of the 16 teams that will make the playoffs, 8 in the West, 8 in the East, that have a losing record at home. They're 15-19. We mentioned that a week ago. So having them at home in this spot, not really an advantage. Detroit already won there 2.5 weeks ago. So they're coming back there to finish off this season series off a loss. I believe they'll return to their form, which was so strong for so long. So we got the Pistons getting a couple points on the road at Miami as a top play.
All right, you got anything else tennis-wise, or?
ATP-wise, just a little update on that. I do, and there's an update on that. Yesterday, we mentioned what our philosophy is on money line wagering in general, and especially as it comes to these tournaments. I take the underdog, and I try to find the dogs in these matchups that I feel have a much better chance of winning than the projected Vegas line. So we did that yesterday. I said, hey, look, you're going to split these two, and you're going to win the juice, which was right on. $100 got you back 160 on Shapovalov yesterday, and he wins in straight sets over Silic. We did lose the Rublev matchup 100, but so what? $100 better makes $60. And we've got the same thing going today. I think we'll split these at worst is what I'm thinking, and we have a shot to win both. I think both are going to play big today, and that is one matchup coming up at 3:30 Eastern. That's a guy by the last name of Struff, and he's playing the more accomplished Raonic. And that's a 12:30, 3:30 Eastern start. He's plus $1.80, and I've seen that as high as $2.20 on some betting platforms. So you can pretty much double your money with Struff. And then Kachanov is a smaller underdog. He's plus $1.20, and I've seen as high as $1.40. So Kachanov is over Isner. So Struff and Kachanov, 12:30, 3:30 Eastern, 2 o'clock, 5 Eastern are those matchups. So Struff and Kachanov in the ATP. I think we can split there and make some money. And did you see that Djokovic lost that match? He was the number one player in the world, Mike. He lost last night. Djokovic.
Man, it happens.
Got beat.
Can't win them all.
Yeah.
Hey,
you can't win them all. That's right. But, it was amazing. He lost that match. He was a huge favorite, probably 15-1 favorite. Got beat. So,
all right.
So the tournament, that tournament's wide open now to be won by somebody.
All right, real quick, we're going to take a commercial break. You can hear an ad from MyBookie.Ag. We will be back with On This Day, the 1983 North Carolina State Wolfpack, right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Goodpaster from the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and I'm here with just one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has recently partnered with MyBookie.Ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website, who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on, and that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out MyBookie.Ag. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on MyBookie.Ag daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now, and MyBookie will give you up to a free $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Just enter promo code TGT50, that's TGT50, to take advantage of this offer. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page for MyBookie.Ag, and also get the same benefit and the same $1,000 free cash bonus on your first deposit. So visit MyBookie.Ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth, and enjoy winning today. MyBookie.Ag. You play, you win, you get paid.
Guys, welcome back to the Sheridan Report, brought to you by MyBookie.Ag. I'm Mike Goodpaster with Bobby Sheridan. Bobby, what do we got for On This Day?
Mike, on this day, I really like this one, and this was because it made me remember something that was pretty cool, and it still lives on every year with Valvano, and that's his team, 1983 North Carolina State Wolfpack. This was the day where they won their conference tournament final. They beat Virginia 81-78 back in 1983, and it was the 30th rendition of the ACC basketball tournament. They beat Virginia 81-78, and what that spurred going forward in the NCAAs, and then we know with Alvano and everything. Would you please expand on this? I mean, this is great stuff right here.
All right, the ACC tournament in 1983, the thing that was interesting about that is they did a trial run with the three-point shot, and I think it was like 17 feet 7 inches, and that really helped NC State out, especially guys with Terry Gannon, Sidney Lowe. And the thing people remember or don't remember is this. NC State was 8-6 in the ACC that year, I think. They were the number 4 seed. They played Wake Forest in the first round and beat Wake Forest at the buzzer in the quarterfinals of the ACC tournament, or this entire run would have been over right then. They beat Wake Forest, I think, 71-70. They went on to play 5th ranked, but number 1 seed North Carolina, which is a team that I think had beaten them twice that year. But NC State comes out, beats North Carolina in overtime, 91-84. Now, on the other bracket, you had the number 2 seed, but Virginia was ranked number 2 in the country. They came out and they beat Duke and Mike Krzyzewski 109-66. They blew out Georgia Tech by like 30. So this championship game seemed like it would be a non-contest, and NC State would just go on to the NIT. Virginia would go on to the Final Four, maybe win a national championship with Ralph Sampson, who was a senior that year. But NC State came out, shot lights out, hitting threes. Lowe, Wittenberg, Gannon all played really well. They beat Virginia 81-78 to go to the NCAA tournament. And I think that people really thought, well, they got hot. That's it. They go into the NCAA tournament. They're a 6 seed, and they play out on the West Coast in the West region. The West region, going into that, the number 1 seed was Virginia. The number 2 seed was UCLA. The 3 seed was UNLV, and the 4 seed was Boston College. Boston College was really good that year, too. I think they had Michael Adams. But when you look at this, NC State comes out, and they were losing by like 6 or 7 points, and there was no 3-point line in the tournament in 1983 with like 50 seconds left. And they come back somehow. They get the win over Pepperdine 69-67 because Pepperdine misses some free throws. NC State hits some big shots. They go on in the next round, the second round, they play UNLV, who's the number 3 seed. Same thing. They're behind in the last minute. It looks like they're done. UNLV misses some free throws. NC State wins 71-70. Now, the interesting thing that happens at the bottom part of that bracket is this. Utah is the 10th seed. And Utah upset Illinois 52-49, and they go to play UCLA in the second round. And Utah upsets UCLA 67-61. And I think this is what really broke this open for NC State, is because instead of playing the second seed UCLA in the regional semifinals, they're playing Utah. And they beat Utah handily. They beat them 75-56. The top side of the bracket, and this is going off memory, but Virginia did have trouble in the second round. And they won the game 54-49 against Washington State, who was the 8th seed. They had to play in the regional semifinals, that Michael Adams team with Boston College, and that was a nip-and-tuck game all the way down to the wire, and Virginia beats them by 3. But I think what that shows is the ACC tournament had a direct, huge effect on this Virginia team, because they went from the previous 4 or 5 games, including the ACC tournament games, before they got upset by NC State, they were beaten good quality ACC teams by an average of 25, 30 points. You get to the tournament, which is a few days after the ACC tournament, and they struggled with Washington State. They barely got by Boston College, and that set up the Elite 8 game between Virginia and North Carolina State. And they had Ralph Sampson. NC State slows the game down, shoots well again from the outside. Ralph Sampson didn't have his greatest game, and then NC State scores with a couple seconds left to go up 1. Ralph Sampson gets his shot at the buzzer to win the game and send Virginia to the Final Four, but it comes up short, and he misses the shot, and that's pretty much it. It sends NC State on this magical carpet ride to the Final Four. Now, the other thing, we talked about the UCLA upset, right, and how UCLA getting upset really helped NC State out. And we see this every year. When it was Butler and their 2 runs, or Loyola last year where Kentucky and a few other teams get beat, you get a couple upsets, it frees it up. And the upset here was North Carolina was the number 2 seed. St. John's was the number 1 seed up in the Eastern region. And Georgia goes through, and the thing is this, they won a close game in the first round against LaSalle. They only beat VCU by 2. Then they upset the number 1 seed, St. John's, by 3 points. And that's St. John's, I think, with a young Chris Mullins. That was a damn good team, coached by Lou Carnesecca. Then in the Elite 8 to go to the Final Four, they played Michael Jordan in North Carolina. Was that Michael Jordan? Yeah, yeah, that would have been Jordan, because that would have been 83. It would have been Jordan's sophomore year.
Right.
And Georgia beats them. And the amazing thing about this is you had Vern Fleming was their best player. The year before, they had Dominique Wilkins. With Dominique Wilkins, they never got this far. They lose Dominique Wilkins, and all of a sudden, Georgia beats North Carolina, and they're in the Final Four. So right there, you dodged playing UCLA, you dodged playing North Carolina. So the Final Four game, instead of North Carolina State, is North Carolina State, Georgia. North Carolina State, Georgia was a competitive game, but North Carolina State controls it, wins 67-60. And really, I don't think anybody was surprised that NC State beat Georgia, because that game was probably a toss-up. But in the bottom half of the bracket, in the late game at Albuquerque, you had Houston and Louisville, which most people, I think, thought were the 2 best teams in the country. And they put on an exhibition between Phi Salama Jama and the Doctors of Dunk that I don't think people are going to soon forget. I think there was like 20 dunks in the game. But Houston wins 94-81. And you go to the national championship game. You got a 1 seed against the 6 seed. And this is probably the biggest line at that point in a college basketball game. I mean, NC State's playing Houston, and they come out, they play well early. They start to fall behind, though, and at 5 or 6 minute mark, looks like they might be in some trouble. But Houston, even though they had great players, had one Achilles heel. The Achilles heel was they didn't shoot free throws well. And NC State, even in a tie game or down 2 with 3 minutes left, is fouling Houston and making them shoot free throws. And you know, Michael Young misses some free throws. Alvin Franklin, who was just a freshman on that team, misses some free throws. And before you know it, you get Wittenberg's shot. It's a long way. And then you get the slam on the short shot. Valvano's running around and basically runs into history. Because when people think of Jimmy Valvano, they think about him in 1983 running around with his arms up in the air looking for somebody to hug. And I think that is,
right?
Yeah, and between 1979 and 1989, that's what made March Madness so big. In 79, you had Bird versus Magic. In 1982, you had Worthy and Jordan beating Georgetown. In 83, you had this massive upset. In 85, you had another massive upset where Villanova, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in the next couple weeks at some point, Villanova beating Georgetown. You had 87, Keith Smart shot at the buzzer. And then another upset that people forget that I think was just as big as this was 1988. That was Danny Manning and the Miracles, where Kansas comes in as a very low seed. They had 11 losses or 12 losses on the season, and they upset Oklahoma, who'd beaten them 2 or 3 times earlier in the season. And in 1989, you had a great game. Andrew Gay, Seton Hall, P.J. Carlosimo, they battled the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan wins the game in overtime when Ramil Robinson hits 2 clutch free throws. So that 10-year period, I think, is what really set into effect what we see today.
Yeah, that's just, wow. I mean, what an era that was right there. And, like you said, 79 to about 89. And one last take on that 83 game. The game being played in Albuquerque, this is just off my memory, but I think Olajuwon for Houston, didn't he have to go to the bench to get some air because he was having trouble keeping his air?
I can't remember if it was the air. I remember they were all breathing oxygen because of it, but I don't remember if it was because of that or if it was because... he got in foul trouble. I can't remember, though.
He might have been in foul trouble. I can't remember either. But there was something that Olajuwon going to the bench early. And Clyde Drexler, I believe, these are Hall of Famers. How did North Carolina State win this game? Really? Clyde Drexler's on that team, and I know he got in foul trouble, and so it was just a miracle. It's just a miracle. And then The guy's running around. Valvano's looking for someone to hug, and then, you know, the story doesn't end there, does it? Because that's not what he's best known for.
Yeah, but the other thing, the reason they lost is,
amazing.
if you remember in this game, Houston had like a 2-point lead with like 7 or 8 minutes left, and they stalled to try to run the clock down. And they ran it down to like 3 or 4 minutes, and then NC State started fouling them. So it backfired on them completely. So I think in the end, this is where Jim Valvano just completely outcoached Guy V. Lewis. And that was Guy V. Lewis's MO, because from Elvin Hayes on up, he had great teams and never got it done.
Wow, yeah. So that's great. What a great memory the '83 season was, and I just hope we can have half of that for this year, and I'm sure we will. You know, every year it brings out something, and we're just getting started. You know, and to bring it to the current, the Pac-12 tournament, I think that could have the same sort of deal. I think we could get a team coming from out of the Pac to win that conference this year and the tournament championship. I mean, and up in Vegas, and USC is my pick there. So, anyhow, good stuff, Mike.
All right. With that being said, we will be back for the Sheridan Report tomorrow, approximately 2 o'clock, because we got a problem tomorrow. Indiana's playing at like 12 o'clock, Bobby.
Well, and I, you know, not to tease the fans too much, but I have a selection in that game already, and I'm going to just, get it all finalized by tonight. And we're going to.
What's the spread on that game right now?
1.5.
Really?
1.5.
Oh,
yeah.
That's not much.
Interesting.
All right. So we will be back tomorrow on the Sheridan Report, brought to you by MyBookie.Ag. We want to thank everybody for listening today. Go to MyBookie.Ag and promo code TGT50, or you can go to thegruelingtruth.net, click on the MyBookie banner at the top of the page, and that will take care of you also without needing a promo code. So we're going to wrap the show up for today. I want to remind everybody we can be found on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.